screen. Again, we are so glad you're joining us today for Anthem Church at Home.
Hey everybody, welcome to Anthem Church. We are so glad you decided to join us today, wherever you are joining us from, whether that's online or out on the lawn. If this is your first time to be with us, we'd love for you to connect. We'd love to hear from you and get to know you a little bit. You can do that by texting the word hello to the number that's on the bottom of the screen. My name is Jimmy. I'm part of the teaching team here at Anthem. And I'm so excited to be continuing our series, Jesus Is. We are looking at some passages from the book of John and talking a little bit about who is Jesus. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the topic, Jesus is the light of the world. And so we'll get into that in just a second. But man, before I get into it, I got to tell you, you catch me at a really interesting time today because I've been in Colorado helping my aunt. She's going through kind of a tough time. And even I'm coming to a milestone birthday here pretty soon. And it's got me thinking about a lot of my things in life that I don't normally think about on a day-to-day basis. And just kind of reflecting on what's gone on in my life. And it's been kind of an interesting thing because, I haven't lived as long as some of you have lived, but I've lived long enough to now see a lot of changes in my life. And one of the things that I've noticed, or one of the areas where there's been the most change is like technology, especially as it relates to cameras, right? So when I was talking to my kids and trying to explain to them what it was like for us to take pictures when I was a kid, I remember getting a camera as a gift. And I had to take this picture and then take film. They don't understand what that was. And then take it to like a store. And then like 7 to 10 days later, we would be going back to the store to collect all of the pictures and see, like, did we get any good shots? Did we not get any good shots? And my kids just can't even possibly understand this situation, okay? Because what they have in their hand with just their phone is so much better than what we had even then. And really what makes a good camera versus like an average camera versus a not good camera is its ability to capture light. The more light it can capture, the better the picture, the better the clarity. And I think this is such an important thing for us as we begin to talk today about Jesus, who is the light of the world, all right? And so we're going to read a little bit from the book of John. I'll be reading from John chapter 8. We're just going to read verse 12. This is Jesus speaking. He said, "Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." I really love this because what I want to do today is I want to help reorient our understanding of light. Because here's the way we think about light. We think about light as something that we can see. We go outside and we look at the sun and we can see light. But the truth is, light isn't just something that we can see. It's the thing by which we see everything else. In fact, if you look at something like a table or a book or a plant or a person, you're not actually seeing the table or the plant or the book or the person. You're seeing the light reflecting off of them. The light shows us everything. And this is so incredibly important because we can't see anything if it's dark, okay? We need light to be able to see. And I think this is a fundamental truth about our world, that we look around all the time and we're wondering, why are things the way that they are? Why do people think the way that they do? And it's because they don't yet have a capacity to appreciate the light of Christ, right? And so I just want to take a few minutes. I'm going to share a couple of scriptures about light because light is throughout the whole Bible. And it's such an important part of things that rather than just pick one passage, I decided I would share just a few of these. And then I have a few thoughts to share about Jesus as the light of the world, okay? And so the first one of these passages that I think is really interesting is in Matthew chapter 4, verse 16. It says, "The people dwelling in darkness have seen a great light. And for those dwelling in the region in the shadow of death, on them a light has dawned." 1 John 1:7 says, "But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sin." Ephesians 5, verse 8, "For at one time you were in darkness, but now you are the light of the Lord. Walk as children of the light." All the way back in Proverbs chapter 4, it says, "But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble." And even at the end of the book at the end of the gospel, or at the end of the Bible in Revelation chapter 21, it says, "And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb." And this one's maybe my favorite one. This is Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1 through 3, and it says, "Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the people, but the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you, and nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. This idea of light is throughout the whole Bible, that the gospel is light, that Jesus is light, that in him is brightness and light, and there is no darkness in him, and you can't live your life without light. It's just such an important thing. And so what I want to do today is I want to give you 3 or 4 thoughts about light and then one exhortation about how we're going to respond to that, okay? And the first thing I would tell you, my first thought about this is this, that your eyes are not to be trusted in dim lighting. I don't know if you've ever been in a place that didn't have very good lighting, but man, it is so frustrating to try to navigate things when you just can't see. And I have run the trail that is near my house, I don't know, maybe 200 times, maybe more than 200 times in the last 18 months. I know every part of the trail. I know where I'm at any point. If you come for a jog with me on this trail and you ask me, how far are we from your house? I can tell you to 100th of a mile exactly where we are. I've run it over and over again. I ran it in the heat and I ran it in the cold. And a few days ago, it was my turn to go and run it. I just didn't get my run done during the day. And so I decided, you know what? I guess I got to do it at nighttime. So I grabbed my headlamp and I set out and I decided I'll just go do a run because I know the trail. It's not a big deal. I'm in suburban Bixby. It can't be that big of a deal. And I started out on the run and something started to happen to me. I started to become afraid. And I'm not even sure why I was afraid. I have a headlamp. I can see the trail that's in front of me, but every little noise began to startle me. And as I got about a half mile in and a mile in, I started to be a little bit panicked and I didn't know why. And as I came up to the spot, there's a spot where it crosses the road, where the trail crosses, and there was a car coming, and I was worried about who was in the car, and I have no idea why. And I started to panic even more, and it was so weird. By the time that I got near the end of the trail, I was like worked up into a complete panic, and that's when it happened. I heard this rustling from the bushes, and I didn't know what it was, and it was like one of those moments that just stood still where I had like 1,000 thoughts and I just froze up. And I don't know why, and I know it's not rational, it's not logical, but I was convinced I was about to be encountering a bear, okay? Now, I know there are no bears in suburban Bixby, at least not that I have ever seen, but in that moment, I just had full panic. And that's when I looked down and realized it wasn't a bear, it was an armadillo. Just a little armadillo. Can't hurt anybody, but I had worked myself up so much because here's the thing, right? We tell ourselves all kinds of crazy things that just aren't true when we don't have enough light to see the truth. And so many people don't yet have the light of the gospel in their life, and so they're telling themselves all kinds of crazy things that just aren't true. And it's not true because they don't have the light of the gospel in their life. We are a people that have seen a great light. It has changed our life. It has changed the way we view everything, the way we view our relationships, the way we view suffering, the way we view our vocation and job, whether we get education. All of this stuff, as believers, is subservient to the light of the gospel. But for so many people who don't have light, they stumble through all of these things and they keep tripping over themselves and they're afraid when they don't have any reason to be afraid. And the reason for all of this, again, is because our eyes are not to be trusted when there's no light. The second thing I would tell you about light is that we're all instinctively drawn to it. For whatever reason, we are just drawn to light. We need to be near it. If we're in darkness, we move towards light. And I always think about this because when I was a kid, my parents, they installed a bug zapper right outside my bedroom, okay? So my house, just kind of the way it was, my bedroom was like on an outside wall and I had a door that went to the outside, and just outside my bedroom door hung a bug zapper, and all night during the summer, I would just hear that buzz of a bug coming to its demise. And then I would come out the next morning and there would just be like a pile of dead bugs at the bottom, and I always thought, like, why are bugs so stupid? They come and they see like this giant pile of dead bugs here, and still they go straight to the light. And I'm not trying to insinuate that Jesus is like a bug zapper, but we have that same instinct in us that draws us to light. We want to be near the light. When we see it, we want to come towards it. We want to move out of darkness into light. It's a part of who we are. We long for that. And so many times when people are so frustrated in their life, it's because they're living in darkness and they cannot find their way to the light. I was thinking about this because my very first mission trip to Mexico, I was in the city of Juarez. And if some of you know where that is or have been there, Juarez is immediately across the border from El Paso. And the contrast between El Paso, a United States city, kind of a normal place, and then Juarez, which is a very rough and difficult place, is very, very interesting. And so we work with an orphanage there, and the orphanage happened to be up on a hill, and it had a room that they called the upper room that's up high, and you can kind of see out over the whole city. And so we would go there at nighttime, and we would do worship, and we would pray for the city. And it was always amazing to me how you could look out these windows, and you could see the sparse lights throughout Juarez, and then you could see this very distinct line where the border was, and then all of the light of the city of El Paso. And I could still, if I close my eyes, I can see that picture. I can think of that. I can hear the sounds and smell the smells. I can put myself right there because I thought all the time, I wonder what it must be like to live as a person on the other side of the border from the light. And many of the people in Juarez are trying to get across the border all the time because that light represents hope. That light represents opportunity for them. And they're drawn to it. And I find that to be kind of a fascinating thing because there's something inherent in us that needs the light. We're not made to live as people in the darkness. We don't function that way. The next thing I would tell you, the next statement I would make about light is this, that maturity results in a greater capacity for light. Now, this may seem like a weird way to frame our journey in Christ, but truthfully, discipleship is really the process of increasing our capacity for the light of the gospel. The further we walk with the Lord, the longer we walk with him, the greater capacity for light that we have. We're like one of those really nice cameras that can capture even more light. And that's such a powerful thing for us, because if you have a camera that can't capture very much light, what you get is a very fuzzy picture. But if you have a camera that can capture even greater amounts of light, you get clarity, you get a specific picture, you get a much more accurate perspective of what is going on. And what we're trying to be as believers is people who capture and have the capacity to understand even more light. And so I think about a time when maybe I was in a dark place or when you were in a dark room. And if you're in a dark place, even like a candle seems bright to you. But if you come from a place where you have a candle and somebody lights a lamp, the lamp is like so bright compared to the candle. Or if they flip on an actual like an electric light, wow, that's even more bright than that. Or if you move from a room that's lit like this and you step into like the outdoors, even on a cloudy day, it's so much brighter. And then you think about a sunny day and how much more brighter it is in that moment. I was in Japan some years ago with my college roommate, and he had taken me on this place where he had gone skiing before. I've never been skiing. That was not my thing, but it was in the middle of the winter. There was snow everywhere, and we took this like gondola ride to the top of this mountain, and it was the brightest, sunniest day, and there was nothing but white all the way around us. And even with my sunglasses, I almost couldn't open my eyes. And it amazed me as I thought about this if I was in this dark room, I would say, wow, that little flashlight, that's bright. But that's not really bright. There's ever more capacity for more light. And this is kind of the way that this works for us in our discipleship process. As we mature in the gospel, we gain a greater capacity to appreciate light. We can see with greater clarity. We see all of the things around us lit up through the light of the gospel. And so this is kind of our confession in this moment, that at this moment we see kind of through a glass dimly, that's what Paul says. But one day, we will see with clarity. And that's our process of discipleship. We're becoming people who can encounter and appreciate and live in the light of the gospel. That's Jesus, okay? The last thing I will say before I move to my time of exhortation this morning is this, that those with greater light must be gracious towards those without it. Now, light's a privilege, and it's accompanied by huge responsibility. And I know we don't think about that all the time, but I've seen a lot of things in my life. I've had a lot of experiences, and you could even say it a different way. You could say that Jesus has shined his light on a lot of different people and places and experiences in my world, such that I could see them and capture them and have that as an experience. And with all of that, that comes with like a very deep responsibility about how I go about living my life amidst other people who have not yet had that same experience in the light. And this is really tough, right? So some of us fail to appreciate just how how privileged and blessed we are to have had these encounters with the Lord and experienced the light of the gospel. And if we neglect that, or if we become people who are not grateful, that's a huge mistake. Right? And if you are one of those people, I won't give you like a huge commercial, but I would tell you that, man, you should get on a team, go serve somewhere, do some mission work, because there are a lot of things that happen in that process, but one of them is certain. You will come back with a greater sense of gratitude for the light that you have encountered in your own life, especially when you see people who live in such brutally dark places, right? But others of us are not ungrateful, but perhaps we're just a bit reckless with our light. I don't know if you've ever been like hiking or something and somebody had a flashlight and you have to be super careful that what you don't do is shine the light in somebody else's eyes, okay? And I think this is the way some people, some believers, unfortunately, live their life. They have this great light, but they're reckless with it, and instead of lighting the path for somebody, they just blind them. They show them, they like blind them with the light. They put it in their face. They expose them and their problems. And rather than just saying, hey, can I just show you where your next steps are? Let me light the path for you. And as a believer, that's our goal, is to live with the light of the gospel and not to shine it on people, not to make them feel bad, not to do that, but to live our life in such a way where we say, hey, let me help you find the next steps. And so when you shine the light for somebody else on the trail, you don't shine it at them, you shine it where they're going. And then they come along at their own pace in this situation. And I think that's a very helpful way for us to think about helping people come to know Christ, right? We want to light up the path for them. I want to be a believer who lives with the light of the gospel such that people can see, they're not blinded, but they can see kind of their next steps. And that's kind of a fundamental shift for us, okay? And so that leads me to this last little bit here of the thing that I really want to say. So what then do we do as a response to this, okay? I don't know where this finds you. Maybe you're a person that's lived with a lot of light in your life. Maybe you've encountered Jesus. You're walking with him a long time. Maybe you barely know about Jesus. Maybe you're a person who really doesn't know hardly anything about Jesus, okay? I don't know where this finds you. Here's what I would tell you. This advice, I've given it 1,000,000 times to people, and I think it's a principle that I try to live with in my own life, and it's this. Walk in the direction of the light that you have. It'll get brighter and clearer as you go. And I think that's a powerful principle because none of us likes to find ourselves in seasons of darkness. And I would love to have greater clarity all the time. I wish that I lived in like this daylight moment where I could look around and I could see the pitfalls that awaited me and I could see the sticks in the road that I was trying to avoid or places that might cause me to stumble, and I could just see it with clarity. But the truth of the matter is, most of the time, we live with some level of darkness, and we're going to have to walk in a direction towards greater light. And I was thinking about this a lot because, as many of you guys know, I had the privilege of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro this year, and that was a huge, huge undertaking. It's the tallest mountain in Africa, 19,341 feet. It is a super big deal. And so I spent a little more than a year training to go and climb Kilimanjaro. And honestly, like that was a pretty intimidating thing to like gear up for, to know that I was going to be spending 7 days on the mountain. And I wanted to be fit enough to handle it and mentally tough enough to handle it. And so I was training, I was running, I was doing some jogging, doing some trekking and hiking to get ready. I was reading everything I could find to read. I was listening to people's trip reports and taking their advice because I wanted to be ready for the experience. And to be honest, the experience is kind of broken down into a few days, and it's kind of there are lots of different routes up the mountain, but they all kind of converge at this one place called Barafu. And Barafu's at like 15,000 feet. And so no matter which route you take to get there, we took a route called the Lemosho route, and it took 5 days to get to this point. And we've been hiking for 5 days, and we get to Barafu, which is kind of the base camp. And then we geared up for our summit push. And to be honest with you, that's what I was prepping for this whole year, was this one night where we were going to push towards the summit. And kind of what happens in that moment is you're there in Barafu, you get there early in the day, you take a rest during the afternoon, you have like a light meal, and you know that they're going to wake you up about midnight, and you're going to start up the trail towards the summit of the mountain. And it is a huge undertaking. And so they wake you up and you put on all the clothes that you have because it's like subarctic temperatures. And then you grab your headlamp, yes, the same headlamp that I was using to encounter the armadillo. And you put all of this stuff together and then you begin the journey to the summit. And we started, it's perfectly dark, okay? And that was like the longest, hardest, grinding night of my life. And we have the headlamp, I'm looking down, and mostly what I see is the ankles of the person who's in front of me and the next step on the path. And so we just keep going and just keep going, and it's breathless and it's difficult, and there are headaches, and people have some sickness and some difficulty through the process, but we just keep going and just keep going. And as you look up, what you see is like a trail of headlamps that blend off into the night sky and the stars. And it just seems so far and so hard and so challenging. So you put your head down and you look again at the ankles of the person in front of you, and you take the next step and you take the next step, and you think, I just got to keep going. I just have to persevere. And if you're lucky and if you hold a good pace, if you've hiked all night long, you should get to the summit and to the crater rim and near the summit right about the time the sun rises. And that's what happened for us. And I can't tell you what it was like to be on the highest point of a whole continent, one of the highest people in the whole world at the time, to watch the sun rise over a beautiful continent and to know what it had taken to get there. And I'm telling you, man, there was not a dry eye among all of our crew who had done it, because they knew what it took to get there. And what it took was a group of people who put their head down, they looked to the light that they had, and they just kept persevering, okay? Just one step after the other, one step after the other. And I gotta tell you, man, this is a weird, weird time for everybody, okay? Some of you are having church on the lawn this morning. Some of you are just watching this online. I don't know how you're finding us in this moment. Maybe you're watching this at YouTube at some point in the future for me, but right in your present in this moment. But I don't know how that's working out for you. It's a very strange time. And yet this is what we know, that God finds a way to get his light into the lives of people. That this is a moment that you have to encounter the Lord, even where you are at this moment. And I think that climbing Kilimanjaro was such a beautiful metaphor, because we just kept our head down, just kept working, and then I just can't tell you the beauty that was waiting for us on the other side. And we just had to tell ourselves, we're almost there, we're gonna get there. It won't be dark like this forever. We're gonna find more light. We're gonna chase the daylight. We're gonna go turn our head this way and just keep pushing. And I know for some of you, maybe you're living in a season of your life where it's bright right now. You know the Lord, you're in a good spot, everything seems clear, but surely you can relate and remember seasons of your life that weren't this way. Or maybe you're in a spot where you're in the darkness at this moment. And I just want to challenge you that you can take a step towards the Lord today. You can keep persevering. You can move towards the light that's in front of you, and it will get brighter and clearer as you go. And eventually you will find yourself in a place with the sunrise, where the gospel makes sense, where it all pays off on the other side of this situation, right? So I know this is a wild time. I know it's a crazy thing. I know it may be weird to be listening online or watching these kind of ways and thinking this is kind of a weird thing, but here's the truth, man. Jesus can meet you right where you are. He can bring the light of his gospel right into the moment where you are, where you're at, even right now. And so I don't know if this finds you in a good place or a bad place or whatever, but I just want to tell you that every week here at Anthem, we try to give people an opportunity to encounter Jesus. And we want to do that for you right now. And so if you're in a place right now where you need to take a big step towards the Lord, or maybe you're in a spot and you're looking around and you can't see anything and you just have just a little glimmer of a lamp in front of you, and this is just that moment, maybe take that step even right now. And one of the ways that we ask you to do that is we like to pray a prayer, and we would love for you to consider praying that prayer with us. Whether you're a believer now or whether this is you crossing the line of faith, we want to give you a chance to do that. We do the same thing. We do it every week. It gives us a chance to reaffirm our commitment or to make a new decision to follow Jesus. And we pray this prayer. We say, Heavenly Father, I come to you a sinner in need of a Savior. I believe that you died in my place for my sin. I believe that you rose again on the third day. I'm choosing today to be done with sin and to follow you all the days of my life. If you're a person today who just prayed that prayer for the first time, or maybe the first time in a long time, we would love to hear from you. You can text hello to connect with us to the number that is here, and we would love to hear what's going on in your world, and we just want to continue to challenge you to keep pushing towards the light of the gospel. And so we'll see you soon, and we're praying for you.